G'day guys, my name's Chris, welcome back to the carport and welcome back to the CD90Z Restomod build series that I'm commencing. In true classic bike fashion, we got a roller, an engine that doesn't work and a whole bunch of boxes that I need to go through to understand what we've got, what we don't and what we need for the bike, and maybe go over a few plans that I've got for it as this build series unfolds. So Marley, Monty and myself, we're gonna open up all these boxes, lay it all out and get an understanding of what's actually there as part of this bike. This was the seat or the saddle that I was supplied. It's just a cheap eBay brat style seat. I've used it before, don't love them. It will fit the bike and it actually looks quite good on the bike, but I have got my eye out for something that comes from this line of motorcycles, ideally a CD90Z seat, but certainly an S90 or a CL90 seat, something like that. The budget's pretty low, so I may be forced to use this, or I may be forced to use a saddle of some description that I've got in the shed from previous projects or bikes that I've taken apart. Got some knee pads, but they've got Yamaha on them, so they're not even part of this bike. We got 3 tanks. This red one doesn't appear to even be a Honda. I hazard a guess to say it's either a Suzuki or a Kawasaki from roughly the same era, so we're gonna disregard that tank. When I looked at the bike, this was the tank that was on it. It's an S90 tank, I believe, and I'm not an aficionado on these bikes, but I'm learning quite quickly. I believe this is an S90 tank, and I could be wrong, but it's interesting because it's the same colour, but it certainly doesn't seem to fit perfectly. Also, it doesn't have the side covers that are chrome, and they're quite expensive and quite difficult to source, so I really don't think I'll actually end up using that tank. The cap doesn't have the key, so it's stuck on, so I would have to drill that out and replace it. I will steal the petcock off that tank, and what I plan on doing is actually using this tank. I'm pretty sure that this is a Benly 90 tank. Bottom line is that the chrome covers are in reasonable condition and a couple of the little dents could be knocked out from the other side. They will polish up pretty well. The knee pads are in pretty decent condition. I might be able to heat them up with a heat gun and just mold them slightly and straighten them out to make them look a little bit better. The tank itself is in reasonable condition. I'll be able to clean up this ridge across the top and sort of just grind it so that it's got a few of the little dents taken out. And the mounting is fine, that works no problem. So I reckon I will end up using this tank, and these Honda emblems are pretty freely available online as reproductions and they're relatively cheap, so I might buy a set of them to put on it. Got the ignition switch and key, which will be awesome. We've got the steering lock. The frame is in really good condition. Any rust that's on it is just surface and really superficial. The bars are really nice. The risers are nice. The triple clamps are nice. The fork shrouds are serviceable. The guards are in amazing condition. There's a little bit of surface rust on them, but that will certainly clean up. And I plan on respraying the bike with a 2-pack clear over the top to make it a very hardy finish. The wheels are great. They're in really good condition. They'll clean up perfectly. There's a speedo cable. There's still a speedo that's in amazing condition, and the speedo shows that it's only got 8,842 miles on it. So this bike was parked up pretty early in its life when something went wrong, and it actually seems to have been inside for most of its life, which is great because most of it is relatively rust free. Somewhere along the line, the tab that limits how far the steering can turn has rusted or broken off, so I'll need to remake that. The light surround is in terrible condition, but I have got one that's in much better condition that I plan on using. There's no switch blocks or levers and perches, and whoever's had this bike has cut the harness, which is really annoying, and taken them. What I did get in the box is some switch blocks, one of which is broken. The perch is snapped, so I won't really be able to use them, so I'm going to have to source some new switch blocks and perches. Got a whole bunch of different throttle tubes and some grips that are, potentially usable if I choose to, but grips are cheap. I'll put something a little bit newer and more classy on it. I don't see the point in using them there. They're just in terrible condition. They don't suit the quality of build that I'm going for. The speedo's in really nice condition. The indicators up front are in really nice condition. So yeah, I'm looking forward to polishing them and maybe putting some 12-volt globes in or some LED globes in. I'm pretty sure I'm going to convert this bike to LED so that it sort of is low wattage and has less draw on the engine. Speaking of engines, I've got three. The one that's in it that seems to be stamped as the engine that came with the bike. I've got this casing, which is pretty rusty. That's a boat anchor. I don't think that that's usable full stop, particularly for a bike like this where engines for CT90s and things like that are quite common. So I wouldn't bother to even touch that one. This one comes from a CT90 and it looks in reasonable condition. The head's there. I could use that if I chose to. The engine, the motor in the bike itself won't turn over. I haven't dug into working out what's wrong with it, but it certainly won't turn over, and I don't want to bend anything in there by forcing it until I understand a little bit more about what's actually wrong with it. We've got full gasket kits, we've got 3 different pistons, we've got valves, we've got valve springs. We probably have enough there to actually rebuild the engine, but I don't actually plan on it. This is why this bike build was not going to be for the purists. What I plan on doing is actually going a Lifan or a ZS 140, 150, 190cc engine swap. People have done it a lot in the CT or the Super Cub series. You don't see many of the CD90s or the S90s with that Chinese clone engine swap, and I plan on doing it, and I know people are not going to be in favour of that, but I just cannot justify the expense at this point of rebuilding that motor when I can get a brand new engine and pop it in and play with that. And you can also get fuel injection for those engines, and I'm actually quite keen to put some money into buying a fuel injection system for it so that I can play with that and have a go at tuning that. But even if we don't fuel inject it, it still comes with an intake, a carby, a pod, and all those sorts of things. So what I'm about to talk about next becomes a little bit obsolete. We've got what appears to be the stock intake, which would go on there, and we've got a gasket kit to rebuild this engine if we choose to. But as I talked about, I really do plan on going that Lifan 140 or 150 or even a 190 route to double the horsepower and increase the capacity. It'll make this bike really fun, and it'll give me sort of a modern engine in a classic bike, which is why I'm calling it a Restomod rather than a restoration. We've got a single side cover, which is broken. They're available, but they're quite expensive. We've got the airbox, but it's missing some parts, but that's fine because the Lifan engine, the intake comes out there and it runs a pod filter, and it comes with a carby that is tuned for that pod filter. So we'd be doing an airbox delete anyway, so it doesn't really matter that that's not complete, and I don't plan on replacing that. Considering how old the bike is, the harness is in reasonable condition and hasn't had too much butchering. Someone has played with it, maybe to try and get the bike going again, but that was in a later life because it's got electrical tape and spade connectors on it and things like that. So I'm guessing that might have been 90s, 2000s rather than 60s, 70s. The harness is in reasonable nick, as I said. The bike is relatively rust free. The battery compartment's great. It hasn't been just filled with water and rusted out. I haven't decided whether I'm going to stick with 6 volt or go with 12 volt. You can get regulator rectifiers for both for those Chinese engines, so I may end up going the 6 volt route because the harness is already there for 6 volt. But you can certainly get 12 volt harness kits for those Chinese clone engines. The shocks are okay, they're a bit knocked about, but I certainly have some other shocks that I plan on using. The helmet lock can come off because I don't have a key for it anyway. The center stand is bent, but I do have this, which is a whole mechanism and rod for the rear brake, and I plan on using that. If it's not from this bike, it should be fairly easy to mount up. The one that's on it's a bit short, and so I'm guessing that it's just come off another bike and I've just whacked it on there, but it doesn't lift the front or rear wheel off, so it's sort of pointless having that center stand. So we'll replace it with this as best we can, and that will connect up the rear drum brake. And the wheels, as I said, are in great condition. The sprocket's in great condition. I just need to buy a chain to connect it all up. Swing arm's in good nick. There's a whole bunch of parts here, but this is the one that I'll need. This is the foot peg mount, and there's the foot pegs. One on this side's off the bike, the one on the other side is already still on the bike, but that will mount up and the foot pegs will mount up. If I do that Chinese engine swap, this will probably just have to be bent slightly to just allow that to clear the brake lever. But I do plan on cutting some pies out of it, bending it and re-welding it and then repainting it. Bunch of fork shrouds that we won't need, but they're all in serviceable condition. They could be restored. Got some reflectors, which we certainly won't be using. Spare brake lever. I'm not sure which one's stock. This one's a little bit longer, but it gives me an option of using one or the other. And I believe with a Chinese engine swap, you have to bend this outward. So I plan on doing some pie cuts, bending it and re-welding it. So I might actually use that one rather than destroying the chrome one. It's a coil and spark plug lead and cap. It's all rusted. It's not serviceable, so I won't be using that. And a couple of random struts for a rack or guard or something. Again, I won't be using them. And to be honest, I don't even know what this is. Won't be using that. What I do plan on using is this brand new exhaust. It's for a Honda S90, but I will be able to make it fit. And if I have to cut this and mount a different flange on from a Chinese bike, I am capable of doing that and I can make it look good. And so we'll use from there back the aftermarket exhaust. Actually, it's marked as Honda motor, so it could actually be a new old stock exhaust, which would be cool. But either way, we will make this exhaust work because it will look great on the bike, really period correct. Got a kickstart, that's all serviceable. Everything else, the guards and things like that, it's all in really good condition, which is what attracted me to buy this bike, even though it wasn't quite complete. There's enough parts here, along with that Chinese engine replacement, to get this bike on the road relatively easily. Don't get me wrong, it's quite a big project, but I should be able to get it back on the road in a reasonably high standard relatively easily. Yeah, I plan on spray painting it. Haven't decided on the colour yet, but it's certainly not going to be lilac like the VL250. It's probably going to be something similar to the stock line, or something that would be fitting with a Restomod of a classic bike. This is the CT90 frame that he's given me. I quite like these forks, so I plan on keeping them. I don't plan on putting it on that bike, but I do like those old style forks, so I'll keep them. There's a speedo cable that I can probably use, brake lever that I can use if I'm desperate, swing arm that I could probably use if I'm desperate, rear light and number plate mounting bracket. I could probably turn that into a holder for a rack if I choose to. There's certainly some usable parts on this. It looks a little bit bent. As you can see, it won't sit straight easily. I'm guessing the frame is maybe a write-off. I haven't measured it or done any sort of work to work out what's wrong with it, but by eye, it looks a little bit bent. So I'm not sure if this would be available to sort of turn into another road-going bike. It would probably be easier to buy a complete one and then work on that. So I'm just going to use this for parts and probably just throw away the frame that I don't use. Guys, that did end up being a fair bit of talking, but I now have a much clearer idea of what I've got and what I don't and where I'm headed, and hopefully I managed to articulate that for you. I've done up a quick list of what that equated to, and I've broken it down into need, have, and have but don't need, and I've listed out a few things. There's nothing here that is really something that would stop this build in its tracks. There's nothing here that I need that is incredibly expensive, bar the purchase of the engine. But even then, they are relatively cheap comparably to rebuilding the one that's in it and still not being sure if I can get it to go. So yeah, that's the inventory. The dogs were absolutely no help, but they certainly enjoyed bashing around in the background and appearing in the introduction. I'm really stoked with this bike, guys, and I'm really happy to have it in the collection, and I really plan on getting it back onto the road and building it to the highest standard that I am capable of doing, and then some. I really plan on pushing the envelope, learning new skills, and sort of developing my skills to make this not a full concourse restoration. It's very much going to be a resto mod, but I really do plan on getting this bike back on the road and making it a modern classic, if you like. Yeah, but guys, my name's Chris. Videos are on Tuesday at 3:30 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. In the next video, we'll start the strip down, and that will sort of allow us to get it all into pieces so that we can start to clean up and respray the frame, clean up and respray the tank, those sorts of big jobs. The biggest job is probably going to be the electrics, and there is a chance that I'll have to completely rewire the bike. I won't bore you with all of the gory details of that, and so it's more going to be a vlog of how I do it rather than a direct step-by-step how-to, and that's probably going to be the theme throughout the entire bike, guys. But as you know, my name's Chris, this is I Ride Taz. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next Tuesday, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support, just go to Super Thanks down the bottom. Hope you like the slightly modified logo and outro. But guys, have a great day, have a great week. Till I see you next Tuesday, guys, I am out. Thank you.